Well, we've produced two publications now looking at the changing nature of city indexes around the world, one in 2008 and one in 2011, really trying to summarize what do all of these city indexes say. The first thing to observe, perhaps, is that there's now almost 100 different city indexes or city rankings of one kind or another. They vary in their sophistication, from some having multiple data sets that have been carefully put together, others being more singular data sets. Some are based on survey results. Some of them are indeed the perceptions of committees of people about things. So they vary hugely in terms of their methodology and their evidence, but they also vary hugely in terms of who's associated with them, from the MasterCard index to the Siemens index to the Mercer index to the PwC Cities of Opportunity. Many of them are sponsored by private sector players, as you can hear. Many are also sponsored now by universities or by groups of universities, or indeed by cities and groups of cities. I've just been involved in creating the first ever Open Cities Index, looking at which cities are most open to international populations. That's proved to be extremely interesting. Now, overall, what do the indexes tell us? Well, they tell us that there is really a dynamic sort of flow between cities at the upper levels of those who perform well across the world, in the sense that if you group these indexes together, the same groups of cities tend to perform well on the economy and finance. Other cities tend to perform well on sustainability and low carbon. Others perform well on quality of life. Another group perform well on brand and image and identity. And you can put them together and make this observation. But there also seems to have been recently, partly because of the economic crisis, some really broad changes in the indexes overall. I guess the first point to make is that the leading cities within the emerging economies have really shot up the indexes in the last period of time. And they have contributed, if you like, to a much more distributed system of success, whereby instead of having the Londons and the New Yorks and the Tokyos and the Hong Kongs and the Parises as the leading cities on most aspects of economy in the world, other cities, including Singapore and Shanghai, Sao Paulo and Mumbai, and others still, have become much more successful. A second observation is that cities that are more oriented towards new economy rather than old economy, those cities that specialize in technology and medicine, creative industries, digital content, are much more focused on green economy, those cities seem to be doing very much better. There's a perception that they're the coming cities. So we see cities again like Cape Town, like Toronto, San Francisco, Singapore again, performing very well in these indexes overall. And the third thing we might say then is that the cities, the established world cities that have done very well in the last period, they seem to have a challenge now of really improving their quality of life. Whether you're London or New York, you've become famous in the last 50 years for being very entrepreneurial cities where global trade and global exchange happens. But these are also cities where economic growth is seen to have been in a trade-off with quality of life. And so London and New York, and indeed Paris and Hong Kong and Tokyo and others, are starting to really focus on how they can improve quality of life, their livability, so that they remain attractive both to companies and to human talent in the long term. At the same time, the emerging cities, whether we're talking about Seoul or Shanghai, or we're talking about Sao Paulo, Beijing or others, these cities have to demonstrate firstly that they can accommodate growth and become sustainable. They do have to demonstrate that the infrastructure, the growth management and everything else can be achieved. But they also need to demonstrate that they are capable of being truly international cities. They're able to be open and transparent. They're able to be safe. They're places where people from all over the world could cluster to create them again as continental centres or even as world cities in their own right. So the indexes have become a very interesting source of insights. They don't yet add up to an overall methodology or science for assessing city success. That's partly because they assess both performance and they assess perception, and sometimes they're not clear about which one they're assessing. And secondly, some of them of course speak more clearly to investors, others speak to consumers or citizens, and others again speak to a kind of policy agenda. So they're talking about different things to different people. But overall, when I'm asked the question, should city leaders pay any attention to city indexes, I think the answer is undoubtedly yes, you should. But there are some cautions and some caveats. The first is that I think city leaders should pay attention to a broad basket of city indexes, not just to one or two. There's a danger if you just pay attention to one or two of skewing your attention towards a narrow focus rather than a broad focus. The second thing that they should use these indexes to do is not so much to tell them why they should be worried or happy about their own city's performance, but use these indexes to illuminate which other cities are doing interesting things and are moving forward in certain ways, which other cities might have some practical lessons or innovations that they could usefully learn about. Then the third thing I think that city leaders should do is they should always augment their analysis of city indexes with robust conversation and surveying of opinion within their own city, particularly engaging with their citizens, with their business community and with other, and trying to find ways, as it were, to complement the outside-in view that city indexes offer with an inside-out view that's only possible to achieve by talking to citizens and other stakeholders. If city leaders do this, I think then city indexes are a great contribution to the toolbox for city leadership, and I'm sure that many city leaders all over the world will continue to use indexes, but will use them more wisely. That, I think, is going to be very important in terms of influencing those who produce the indexes in future to produce indexes that are smarter, more sophisticated, and in the end more useful.